I am a service dog, and I remember the day you stopped smiling. I was trained to notice. That's what they taught me. Watch for the signs, the tremble in your fingers, the sudden shift in breath, the way your eyes dart or stay still too long. They trained me to know the difference between when you're tired and when you're slipping. But no one trained me for this. No one taught me what to do when the laughter fades, not in a moment, but in slow, quiet pieces, like sunlight vanishing through fog. I still remember your smile. It used to reach all the way to your eyes. You had a laugh that startled birds from fences and made people turn their heads. I loved that sound. It meant the world was okay. But then, something changed. I don't know when. Maybe it was that winter where the sky stayed gray for weeks. Maybe it was the morning you stopped going to the window, or the night you stood in the hallway holding your keys and then set them down and didn't leave again for days. I noticed. I always notice. You see, I was chosen, not for tricks or looks, but because I could feel things, deep things, because I knew how to stay close without crowding, because I never looked away. You called me your shadow, your guardian, and I was proud of that. You were strong once, not in muscle, in spirit. Even on bad days, you used to pull yourself together and say, "Let's go." And we would. We'd walk, even if your shoulders sagged and your steps were slow, and I'd walk beside you, not ahead, not behind, just beside. Always. But then, one day, you didn't say, "Let's go." You didn't say anything. You stayed in bed, not sick, just still. You stared at the ceiling as though it held answers I couldn't read. I brought you my leash. I laid it across your chest like a question. You didn't move, so I laid my head on your heart and waited. That became our routine. Not the parks or the coffee shop, not the soft chuckles when I tilted my head too far, not the games with the ball you always pretended to lose. Number just waiting. Me by your side, your breath shallow and uneven. Sometimes you'd cry without tears. Sometimes you'd whisper things I didn't understand. Things like, "What's the point?" Things like, "I can't do this today." Things like, "I don't matter." But you did. You mattered to me. I wanted to tell you that with every blink, every nuzzle, every warm sigh at your side. I licked your hands when they shook. I laid across your legs so you'd feel the weight of something real. I pressed my nose to your chest when your heart beat too fast, too wild. When you couldn't breathe, I breathed for you. That's what service means. I did not need you to speak. I just needed you to stay. And some days, that was enough. Some days, you sat up, took a shower, opened the curtains. I felt the sun on my back and dared to hope. Other days, you pulled the covers back over your face, and I curled beside you. Even in darkness, I stayed. They said I was a tool, a resource, something designed to assist. But I was never that. I am not a machine. I am not just trained. I chose you. I loved you. Long after the command stopped, long after the tasks went silent, I stayed. Even when your family stopped visiting, even when the phone stopped ringing, even when your therapist's name became a number you ignored. I stayed, because I remember. I remember who you are beneath the pain. I remember the way you used to sing to the radio when you thought no one was listening. I remember the way you rescued me once, from a cage, from noise, from being unwanted. I remember how you cried the first time I rested my head in your lap. You said, "No one's touched me in weeks," so I made it my mission. You would never be untouched again, even if the world forgot you. I wouldn't. I became your gravity, not just your guide. I was the one thing that didn't leave when the world got loud, when your thoughts turned sharp, when even your own reflection felt like too much. I was there when the medicine stopped working, when the voices in your head grew stronger than the ones outside it. I was there when the words from friends and doctors blurred into white noise. I didn't have advice. I didn't have answers. But I had presence. That's what you needed most. Not someone to fix it. Just someone who stayed. You began to move differently. Slower, more cautious, like the floor might collapse under you at any moment. You'd get up just to sit back down again. You'd walk to the sink, stare into it, and forget why. Sometimes you'd talk to me, not with real words, with looks, with sighs, with the way your hand would rest on my back like it needed anchoring, and I would lean in harder. I was never trying to fix you. I was trying to remind you. You weren't alone. There were nights when you cried in your sleep. I learned to tell the difference between a twitch and a nightmare. I'd place my head across your ankles, just enough weight to ground you, not enough to wake you. And in the dark, I'd keep watch. I didn't sleep much back then, not deeply. I couldn't, not when you needed me. Your breathing would change and I'd be there, ready, not trained, just devoted. The days blurred into each other. I learned the new patterns. You stopped making coffee. You let dishes pile in the sink. You didn't brush your hair. But then, one morning, you opened the window. It was such a small thing, but I noticed. You opened it and let the breeze come in. It ruffled my fur, and you smiled. Only a little, only for a second. But it was real. I remember that moment the way some creatures remember their first snowfall. I remember the way the light touched your cheek. I remember the smell of spring. And I remember thinking, maybe today will be easier. I never expected miracles. I didn't need you to be cured. I just wanted you to be okay. And you tried. I saw it. You'd get up and stretch and talk to yourself in the mirror. You'd say, "You've got this," even when I could tell you didn't believe it. I still wagged my tail, still sat at the door when you reached for your shoes, still brought you my leash with a little bounce, hoping it would make you smile again. And some days it did. We'd walk in silence. You rarely spoke, but you let the sun hit your face. You'd watch the trees, or a bird, or the way the shadows fell across the sidewalk. I'd glance up at you every few steps just to check. You always looked tired, but sometimes less heavy. I lived for those days. I lived for the days when you hummed without knowing, when you pet me without needing to, when you sat on the floor instead of the bed and let me curl around you like a question mark. People don't always understand what depression looks like. They think it's loud, messy, dramatic. But I saw what it really is. It's quiet. It's the plate you don't wash, the walk you don't take, the call you don't return, the way your eyes go blank in the middle of a sentence. It's the silence that stretches too long. But I never judged that silence. I lived in it with you. I curled into it. I softened its edges. If you couldn't talk, I listened anyway. If you couldn't move, I laid still. If you couldn't feel love, I gave it anyway, without asking for it back. That's what love is, I think. Not always equal, not always obvious. Sometimes it's just the staying. And I stayed, even when the doorbell scared you, even when you flinched at shadows, even when you forgot to eat and your hands shook when you finally remembered. I stayed, because I remembered. I remembered who you were before this storm, and I believed, no, I knew, you were still in there, covered in fog maybe, drowning in sorrow, sure, but not gone, never gone. Even on the worst days I could find you in the way your hand found mine, in the way you whispered, "Good dog," even when your voice cracked, in the way you let me stay near when everything else felt too loud. You may think I saved you, but the truth is, you saved me too. You gave me a purpose bigger than instinct, bigger than obedience. You gave me someone to love fiercely and endlessly. You gave me meaning. And every time you reached out, even just to rest your fingers against my fur, it was like being chosen all over again. That was enough for me. Always. There was a day, you might not remember it, but I do. You sat on the floor for hours, your back against the bathroom door. You held your knees tight, your head resting on them, your eyes hollow. I pawed once, just once. A gentle reminder, I'm here. You didn't move, you didn't cry, you just breathed, slow and tired and numb. So I lay down beside you, my nose tucked under your arm. And that was where we stayed, for hours. That was the first time I realized that loving you meant standing still with you, not trying to pull you forward. The world outside kept spinning. I heard it. The garbage truck, the neighbor's footsteps, children laughing somewhere far away. But in that moment, your world had stopped. And so I stopped with it. We didn't chase healing. We just survived that hour, and then the next, and the next. Time is strange when sadness stretches across it. It bends and warps and makes weeks feel like lifetimes. I watched seasons change through the window. I noticed when the days grew longer, though you kept the blinds drawn. I noticed when the leaves began to fall and you wore the same sweater for days. I didn't mind. I just curled up beside your feet and reminded you, in silence, that your presence still mattered to someone. There were brief flickers of life, moments when I saw the old light return, when you tied your hair back or wore those silly socks I loved, when you played a song from long ago and whispered the lyrics under your breath, when you opened the front door, stepped outside, and let the air touch your skin again. I remember everyone. I collected them like treasures, tucking them into my memory so I could hold on to them when things went quiet again. And then, one morning, something changed. You woke up before the alarm. You didn't sigh. You didn't roll over. You sat up. Slowly, like you were surprised to still be here. You rubbed your eyes and looked at me. Really looked at me. And there it was, that tiny spark, just enough to ignite a whisper of hope. You said my name, not like a command, like a greeting, like you'd forgotten how it felt to say it and were just now remembering. I wagged my tail, not too hard, not too loud, just enough to let you know I was still here. You moved through the room differently that day, not quickly, but deliberately. You opened the window again. You poured a cup of water and actually drank it. You sat on the porch with your knees pulled to your chest, and I sat beside you. You watched the sky. I watched you. And for the first time in what felt like forever, you blinked into the sunlight and didn't flinch. That day, we took our first real walk again. It wasn't long, just to the corner and back, but every step felt like a victory. You didn't talk. I didn't pull. We just moved forward, side by side, the way we used to. And slowly, more days like that followed. Days where you remembered how to move your body without it feeling like a burden. Days where you remembered how to eat because you were hungry, not just because I nudged your hand. Days where you opened the curtains before noon and watered the plants you once let wither. There were still hard days. There always are. You'd still have moments where the light dimmed, where you disappeared again. But the difference was, you came back. Faster. More often. You didn't stay lost for so long. You began to believe that coming back was possible. And every time you returned to me, I welcomed you like it was the first time. Because it always felt like a miracle. Because I never got tired of choosing you. The people around you began to notice too. The neighbor who hadn't seen you in months waved from across the street. The delivery driver who used to leave packages without knocking actually said hello. You even returned a phone call. Just one. But I saw what it cost you. And I saw what it gave you too. A flicker of connection. A reminder that you still existed in someone else's world. But no one knew the whole story. No one saw the nights, the shadows, the silence. I did. I saw all of it. And through all of it, I never left. Because I don't measure love in walks or praise or treats. I measure it in presence, in stillness, in staying. I wasn't just your support animal. I was your witness. To your sadness, to your strength, to your return. I didn't need you to be perfect. I didn't need you to always be okay. I just needed you to try. And you did, over and over again. That was enough for me. More than enough. The world is louder now. Brighter, too. You open the door most mornings. Sometimes barefoot, sometimes still in your robe, but you step outside. And I'm always right there, just a few paces behind like I've always been. The leash is lighter in your hand now. You hold it like it belongs there again, not like it's a lifeline, but like it's a choice. And I walk with you. Not because you need me to stop shaking, not because I have to block a panic, but because we like walking together. We go places again, the park, the little bakery with the blue awning. You still don't talk to many people, but you smile at them now. You nod. You hold doors open. Small things. Quiet things. But I notice. I always notice. There was a time you couldn't speak without your voice catching in your throat. Now you hum when you wash dishes. You laugh. Rarely, softly. But it's back. Not like it was before. It's smaller now. Wiser. Like something you've earned. Sometimes, when you sit on the couch, you look at me like you're remembering those early days. I can feel it in the way your hand finds my chest and lingers there. Like you're silently saying thank you without needing to say it at all. I nuzzle into your palm, and we sit like that. Two survivors, two still beating hearts, wrapped in the quiet of an ordinary afternoon. I still watch you. I always will. I still check for the signs. Some days, they're there. A stillness that's a little too long. A stare that doesn't focus. A sigh that dips too low. But you bounce back now. You talk back to the fog. You say, not today. You say, I'm still here. And when you say it, I believe you. Because I see you now. Not just existing. Not just enduring. But living. And that's all I ever wanted. You started writing again, just little notes at first, grocery lists, reminders, then a journal, a letter you never sent, a page with my name written at the top, followed by, you saved my life. You left it out on the kitchen table one night. I can't read, not really, but I know when I'm being spoken to. I felt it, deep in my ribs. I licked your hand that morning, long and slow, and you didn't pull away. Some people think animals don't understand, that we don't feel the depth of your grief, your fear, your hope, but they're wrong. We know more than we're given credit for, especially the ones like me, the ones trained not just to obey, but to feel. You never needed me to fetch things or press buttons. That wasn't what you needed most. You needed someone to hold space for your silence. Someone to witness your unraveling without running away. And I did that. Gladly, without question. Because you were never broken to me. Just tired, just buried, and worth waiting for. We go out most evenings now, right before the sun dips behind the buildings. You like that hour? The golden time, you call it? Everything feels softer then, more forgiving. The shadows are longer, but they don't scare you anymore. You walk with your hands in your pockets, shoulders a little straighter, eyes lifted just enough to catch the sky. And me? I walk beside you, always beside you, never ahead, never behind. You stop sometimes, and I feel the pause in your breath. You'll say things like, this is nice, or I think I'm okay today, or nothing at all, just a sigh that isn't heavy but peaceful. And I know, you're healing. It's not perfect. It never will be. There will be days when the clouds return, when the weight presses down again. But I'm not afraid of those days, because I've seen what you can survive. I've seen what you can come back from. I know now. You always come back. You don't wear makeup anymore, not unless you feel like it. You don't apologize for the quiet days. You don't flinch when someone asks how you've been. You answer honestly, sometimes with a shrug, sometimes with a smile. You've learned to carry your pain like a scar, not a wound. It's there, but it doesn't bleed anymore. And I'm still here, watching, walking, waiting if needed, celebrating, always. You let people pet me now. You even introduce me. This is my dog, my service dog. And your voice doesn't crack when you say it. You say it with pride, because it means something. It means we've come through something together, and we're still walking. Sometimes, at night, when the house is quiet and the lights are low, you reach down and run your fingers through my fur. Slow, gentle, and you whisper things, not full sentences, just pieces of feelings. Thank you. I'm tired. I love you. And I understand every word, because this isn't about tasks anymore, or roles, or training. This is love, pure, patient, undemanding, eternal. Sometimes I wonder if you remember the worst of it, not just the fog, but the days when your world felt like a locked room with no doors, when you were too exhausted to cry, too numb to speak. I do. I remember it all. Not to dwell on it, not to keep it alive, but because it shaped us. It carved out the space between us, and I filled it with presence. I was your warmth when the cold crept in, your weight when the world felt too light and you floated too far from yourself. I was your reminder. You are still here. You no longer need me in the same way. I see that now. You don't tremble in public places. You don't check the locks 3 times before bed. You don't shrink when strangers speak your name. You stand a little taller. You move through the world like it owes you nothing, but still, you claim your space in it. But just because you don't need me doesn't mean I'm done. You once said I was your anchor, and now, maybe I'm your sail, the thing that catches the wind as you move forward, quietly guiding, always watching, still close, always close. I'm older now. My muzzle is touched with gray. My legs don't carry me as fast, and the stairs creak louder beneath my weight. But you slow down for me. You take shorter walks. You stop and sit with me in the grass, and we watch the clouds together. I think we both know what's coming. The day I won't be here to follow you down the hallway. The morning when the leash stays on the hook. The night when you sit by the window alone. I won't be there forever, but I was there when it mattered most. I was there in the silence, in the shadows, in the sleepless hours and wordless grief. I was there when you forgot who you were, and I stayed until you remembered. And when I'm gone, I hope you'll still feel me, in the way you wake up and stretch with intention, in the way you hold the leash of the next dog, maybe not a service dog, just a companion. I hope you'll tell them about me, that you'll say my name once in a while, that you'll smile when you do. Because this, what we had, was not ordinary. This was devotion, on both sides. This was loyalty and trust and unspoken love. This was survival, yes, but also something more, something beautiful, something rare. When people ask you what saved you, you don't have to say my name. You don't even have to speak of me. But I'll know. I'll know that I was part of your story, that my presence was the bridge between the you that was drowning and the you that learned to breathe again. And even in the quiet after I'm gone, I hope the memory of me reminds you. You were never alone. You are still not alone. You are here. You are whole. And you are loved. Because I was a service dog. But to you, I was just love with a heartbeat. And I remember the day you stopped smiling. But more than that, I remember the day you smiled again, and I'll carry that with me, always.